hours. Chris Mack and the University of Louisville are negotiating a separation agreement. It's 10 a.m. Eastern at the time of this recording. So if you're getting to this later on Wednesday or even on Thursday, there's a decent chance, a really good chance, things have already changed drastically. But at this moment, that's where we're at. Chris Mack is still technically Louisville's coach right now, but that's about to change. A meeting of Louisville's Board of Trustees and Athletics Board has been scheduled for later on Wednesday. They are expected at that point to approve whatever buyout has been agreed upon, and then Chris Mack will have gone the way of John Dromo. Deadleg, how did we get here so abruptly?
Podcast jinxed the whole thing. I think that's what happened, my man. We put this into motion. I blame you. I blame me, because Louisville went out a day after we talked about this Sunday night with Sam Bassini. And hello to YouTube. If you have not, please.
Hey, YouTube.
Hit the like button as you watch, please.
Hey,
do so.
YouTube.
They lost at Virginia, and after I believe we both said we didn't think Chris Mack would necessarily lose his job at the end of the season. Now he might not have it by the time some people are listening to this podcast. Now,
which by the way, means we were correct. He's not going to lose his job at the end of the season.
You're right.
Who was right? Who was right? All we said was, I'll be surprised if he loses his job at the end of the season. Never said he might lose his job. I never said he wouldn't lose his job this week. Just said we'd be surprised if he lost it at the end of the season.
Exactly. So couple things here, more than a couple, I guess. Yeah, this is obviously accelerated. I've got thoughts on if this is even the right move, but there are some rumblings here that this isn't necessarily a situation where Louisville is the one catalyzing this situation. And by that, I mean, there is some emerging belief, if you will, that this really might be something of a mutual deal. As of this morning, I can report that there are still discussions ongoing between Chris Mack and Louisville Athletic Association and then the Board of Trustees. That meeting is going to happen at 4 Eastern later today. And I believe for anyone watching on YouTube right now, if you're listening on podcast early afternoon or whatever, we're obviously anticipating this is going to be a sever that happens. So we're not going to do an emergency podcast when that happens, but we will have something, I believe, YouTube only for the channel. So if you want a little more, once that happens late afternoon, early evening on Wednesday, we will have something for you then. But, this is not a exact similar situation to what happened with Turgeon at Maryland, but we could have a situation, broadly speaking here, where Mark Turgeon, we're now almost 2 months past this, but I learned some time ago, he did resign. Mark Turgeon was the one who walked into the Maryland athletic offices and said, I'm not going to coach this program anymore. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. It's just, I've moved on. I'm past it. I'm not taking that, abuse anymore because the fans have been brutal. That's not what's happened here with Mack, but I do think there probably is an element of that where it's gotten real toxic. Louisville fans found me, by the way, because I think on the Sunday podcast I said, I think some of the fan base is okay with moving on and is kind of past this. Then a lot of Louisville fans found me, said, and Sam, to his credit on the pod, thank you, Sam, again for coming on. He might be on later. We'll see how that goes. He said, I think it might be more. Oh, it's more. They have turned on Mack in a hurry. It's kind of wild. Now it dates back to the offseason stuff and extortion. Look where this gets you, by the way, GP, as an aside. I think that Mack might not be, clawing and scraping here to hold his job. I think he's okay and maybe approaching to be at peace here with where we are. But regardless of all that, it's still middle of season 4, and sure it's happened. I haven't had time to think about it because it's been so noisy the past almost 24 hours. So I haven't really gone and researched it, but I'm trying to remember the last time in men's college basketball that there would have been a hire that was as nearly universally praised as Mack. Now, again, I'm going to tee up here. I know I'm pulling at you right now. I'm rambling, but there's a lot to get to. We did have that podcast where we did ask, is this going to be the right move? Xavier's a great spot. We did that, but still, even with that, Chris Mack to Louisville was the one for months that people thought was going to happen, and it happened. When was the last time a hire that was, that much of a lock? Didn't see the coach make it to the end of his 4th season at that school. It's a rare one, and I'm still a little bit surprised that we've actually hit this point where he's expected to part ways with the school by the end of the day today.
Well, I don't know that it was gone by the before the end of his 4th year, but there another recent one that was like everybody thought it would be perfect, and it just wasn't. Archie Miller at Indiana,
right? That's the strings, but he lasted longer than this. But you're right, Archie Miller was highly praised,
right? Which should be a lesson for everybody. Come March, April, when these hirings are happening, there are some that look great on paper, but nothing is guaranteed to work. Like I roll my eyes sometimes at people who speak in absolutes about teams or games or anything that's going to be determined in the future by a wide range of variables. I don't want to say I've never done it, because I'm certain I have. I've been talking and writing and tweeting for a long time, but I try to catch myself. Like, there's no way this won't work. Well, there is always a way it won't work. Yep. Yeah, and the situation at Louisville is a great example of that. I feel like what happened here is that nobody knew the name John Dromo, right?
That's true.
Yeah. And then on Sunday night, I brought to the world's attention that Chris Mack was about to miss the NCAA tournament for the 2nd consecutive tournament, making him the first Louisville coach to do that since John Dromo. And the people at Louisville were like, hold up. What? Like, we knew this wasn't going well, but John Dromo? And now here we are, just a few days later. It's wild to think about how differently this could have gone very easily.
Yeah.
He made the NCAA tournament in his first year at Louisville.
Yes.
Would have made it in his 2nd year at Louisville, if not for the
2 or 3 seed, if that happened. Yeah.
If not for the dumbest pandemic of our lifetimes. Certainly mine. And then should have made the tournament last season, but got left out in a way that ran contrary to every, or at least most, reputable bracketologist. So Chris Mack could have ended the season coming off 3 straight NCAA tournaments. Instead, he entered this season having missed last season's NCAA tournament, and then, for reasons that have never made some sense to some people, fired 2/3 of his coaching staff. Then he got caught up in an extortion scandal. And you say this is what extortion leads to, and I respect that opinion. I see it as an option.
Okay.
But as we've discussed many times, that was amateur hour extortion. It's not professional extortion. That was amateur hour extortion. I'm a much better extortionist than Dino Gaudio. And I feel like if I counseled him, this whole thing could have played out differently. Either way, Chris and Dino get caught up in an extortion scandal, which is just funny to say. I mean, it's sad. I'm not intentionally laughing, but can't help myself. And Dino mishandled it. Chris mishandled it. It leads to a suspension. This team gets away from him very quickly. Former players turning on him publicly. Current players certainly not inspiring any sort of confidence. And now here we are. But, like, you know how the NCAA tournament works, don't you? I hope so. I mean, you get in there regardless of what seed you are, and there's no telling where you can go. And it can change the entire perception of you, your program, everything. And, you know, if we have a 2020 NCAA tournament, who knows where Louisville ends up? Mm-hmm. That could it could change recruiting, change everything. But it gets canceled. And then if he gets in the field last season, let's just put him in the first 4. Not like there wasn't a team in the first 4 last season that didn't go to the Final Four. Not saying that would have happened at Louisville. I'm just saying you don't know where things are headed once you get in that bracket. But they miss it. perhaps incorrectly, and then that starts the domino effect that in part leads to this day. I'm always fascinated by how if you take three relatively, flippable things and flip them, somebody's entire life could go differently. And I think that's, perhaps a too simplistic way, but a mostly accurate way to describe what has happened here. It's easy for people to say right now, because I've seen some of this. He's just not the right fit. Never fit. Never did. He could be coming off of 3 straight NCAA tournaments, and we probably wouldn't even be in this conversation. As it is, because of this, and this, that things that could have easily gone the other way. Here we are, January 26, 2022, talking about Chris Mack's out at Louisville and who's going to be the next coach.
Chris Mack went 67-38 at Louisville. That's win percentage of .648, won 65% of his games. So, Archie Miller didn't win at that clip. So, a winning percentage that is that good. There just aren't many analogs to what's happening here. Now they've been sliding as of late. Lost 5 of the past 6. The only win was at home to a bad Boston College team in that stretch. This is all overshadowed Russ Dickulus getting his number retired over the weekend, by the way.
Oh, no.
Completely unfair to the legend Russ Smith. Completely unfair. But, yeah, we're sitting here, man. We're not even to February, and we've got 2 of the top 20 jobs in America that are open, and this is happening after a 2021 in which the likes of North Carolina, Indiana, Texas, Marquette, going down the line, just, there had never been so many jobs open in the same calendar year before of high quality in men's college basketball. And now we've got a couple more. And this is a topic for another time, but I couldn't help but think, is this going to lead to a situation where we're talking in 2 or 3 weeks about another job in a power conference that opens up? Because there certainly are some schools right now that are not performing well, and I could certainly see a change there. And is that going to be something consistent and common? Because we had a little bit of this in college football last season, the season before, and I remember talking to one AD, I don't know, mid-November, early November, and that person was wondering aloud if men's college basketball would be heading toward the same pattern. And I said, I don't know. And then 3 weeks later, Mark Turgeon actually resigns, but it wasn't opening. It doesn't matter how it came about. And now we have the Louisville thing with Chris Mack. Chris Mack, his buyout is $12 million. So as I understand it, the lawyers and everyone's involved right now trying to figure out how much money Chris Mack is going to get to go away. Again, barring some 11th hour Hail Mary player stand up. Now we want to be with coach for the rest of the season. Then we can split.
It doesn't seem like any players are standing up to do anything.
But
they were actually invited to do that in a recent press conference and declined the opportunity.
You're right, but I had to qualify it just in case. Yes, just so for the record, as we record this podcast, Chris Mack has not materially split from Louisville. That has not actually happened yet. It can't happen until this meeting at 4:00 later this afternoon. But the terms of the buyout have to be, or the terms of the settlement, I should say, need to be determined, because he's not going to get all of that money. He's going to want plenty of that money. I'll be interested to see what the figure is. Now, I was told that this contract, which when he took the job, afforded him an extra year if Louisville got a postseason ban and all that. There's also clauses in the deal where if Chris Mack was found to have committed, level 2 violations, it nullified the terms of the buyout. And, I had someone tell me before this came out, I had someone tell me this over the weekend that, that the Louisville, there would be people that would be trying to uncover any possible level 2 in there to basically enact a for cause clause and reduce that buyout to nothing. So I think there's probably, and all this stuff came about. Why? Because Mack recorded the conversation with Dino Gaudio where he alleged that there was wrongdoing within the program. And so then it was this tricky situation where Mack then reported what Gaudio was doing. But by nature of doing that, it revealed that Gaudio was claiming that there was wrongdoing. The NCAA sent an amended notice of allegations to Louisville, which was already under another investigation, and said, now we're going to include this. Illegal on-court activities from non-coaches, video things that are against the rules, and a lack of compliance, or promoting an atmosphere of compliance from Chris Mack. This is in the amended notice of allegations. That is a level 2 that would fall on Chris Mack and threaten the status of what his buyout could be. And so now they're determining how much money he's actually going to get. And maybe, I'm not saying this as a fact, but I'm saying if indeed Chris Mack was either approached Louisville officials and said, okay, we can, this is just gone sideways, it's not tenable, and he's, being very amenable in this situation, then maybe he's more likely to get 6 or 7 million of that by settling, as opposed to fighting and clawing for 3 or 3.5. So we wait to see on the details with that, but it is quite interesting to see how much this has accelerated. The losing in general, as it always does, the losing really pushed this. But last thing, I'll throw it back to you, GP. I could not help but notice, having, Louisville's not relevant, but I still check in on the games and, have them going up here in the office at night and on the weekends. And even though Russ Ridiculous had his number retired and all that stuff, and it was great, like, there have not been butts in the seats in that arena at the level that they expect it to be. Like, the fans have not been actually tangibly showing up to support the program. And I think that has a real powerful impact on a coach when things are going sideways. And, he was suspended 6 games to even start the season. So anyway, what else you got on this?
Well, I want you to clarify a few things about this contract, because the way you phrased it right there was, if Chris Mack has found to have committed a level 1 or level 2 violation, the buyout could be reduced to 0. In the story that you published last night, it says if a level 1 or level 2 violation happens on Chris Mack's watch, which would imply even by one of his assistant coaches, then the buyout could be reduced to 0. Can you further explain that?
As I understand the contract, and I did not review the entire thing in advance of this podcast, but there is a 4-cause clause in the contract for any level 2 violation. So I don't have the specific language on that, Parrish, whether if it was, if it's, like things that, for example, when Rick Pitino was there and he lost his job and things were happening under Rick Pitino's watch that he claimed he didn't know was happening, ultimately that didn't matter and he got thrown out. It would stand to reason that Louisville, having come off of the Pitino situation, why would you not insist that these be part of the terms of the contract for the next coach? Because this is what got you into this mess multiple times with Pitino to begin with. But certainly, I think some of that now becomes irrelevant because the NCAA alleges that Chris Mack did not promote an atmosphere of compliance in its NOA, and that would carry a level 2 violation. Now, that case is not done yet. It will not be done for months. We might not have resolution on this until the fall. But because of that, the status of how much money Chris Mack would make is in jeopardy, and I think that's what they're bargaining over right now. But there is a tangible difference between anyone doing anything wrong while Chris Mack is the coach and anything being specifically tied to Chris Mack. And that difference, frankly, the devil could be in the details literally right now in regard to stuff that could have happened at Louisville. That's big picture, not that big of a deal. But for Louisville and its lawyers, when it's going to try and, keep every dime it can keep, that stuff actually does matter.
Oh, I think it's the biggest deal. And it feels like from this, from my perspective, it gives Louisville all the negotiating power, all the leverage in the world. Because let's say in a vacuum, you owe the guy $12 million and you just say, we're not giving you $12 million. That seems understood. Otherwise, you're not, because I had some people last night in the studio. Why is he even negotiating? They owe him $12 million because it might be 0. and they got to find something that's probably findable. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
They got to find something that's probably findable. So if you're Louisville, I mean, you mentioned 6 or 7 million. If you're Louisville, why don't you? What stops you from saying, "We'll give you 2"? What 2? My contract says 12. You're going to give me 2? Okay, we'll fire you for cause, and we will. We're now actively looking for a level 2 violation. I bet we'll find one, and then it'll be 0. In the meantime, you'll spend a bunch of money on lawyers. You want the 2? Or you want to go down this path? Oh, and by the way, if we start looking for violations and we actually find something of substance, not only do we reduce the bout to 0, might make getting your next job a little more complicated. You really want us hunting? One of your assistant coaches is already on tape talking about the program was committing violations. You really want us looking? Or you want to take your $2 million? That's a tough spot, man. It's a game of chicken, and I feel like the coach probably blinks before the university.
Yeah, that's true.
What a tough spot.
Are you a chicken?
Oh,
Man. Am I gonna have to retire that one, by the way? When you really think back at what, like, Mack gave us some moments, man. We had this classic one, yes.
Are you a chicken?
The Kentucky game that and all the drama from that during last season. That brief video that came out of Mack celebrating after beating Kentucky, the extortion, the suspension for 6 games this year, tied to what essentially, as far as he violated university policy, HR policy for firing Gaudio without a university representative in the room and all this stuff. And by nature of doing that, that's how these allegations even come to light. Like, it's just, it's wild. But again, to your point about the, hypothetically take the 2 million or, F around and find out. Again, if Mack is being amenable in this situation, and there are people in that athletic department that have been around him, that do like him, they might just be more willing to be like, okay, well, this is gonna split, but let's just figure out the terms of all this stuff. So that's where we're at right now. Again, at Louisville has no athletic director, no sitting athletic director, no sitting president, and you are presumably about to make the split with Mack. You're going to get these people in positions before you hire your next head coach? Because I'll tell you one thing, what you don't want a situation where you've got a board of trustees and some boosters in effect, even though this sometimes, practically speaking, as Parrish well knows, will happen behind the scenes. You need people in positions of authority holding full-time jobs making these decisions. So Louisville's got to, and apparently they might be hiring the interim as a full-time, the AD as a full-time, I guess. Someone told me that yesterday, but it makes the situation in terms of who will get this job, who will consider this job, fascinating to me. Louisville's been an institutional mess going on a decade plus, Parrish. Like, we talk about, this is a top 10 job. Yeah, when it's operating under normal circumstances. The last time that happened was when? Not since we've had this podcast going. Like, it's been forever. And so, yes, they're going to get
since the days of John Dromo.
Come on now. So they'll get a good coach. But if you're a Louisville fan, I mean, you can't go. This place refuses to go more than 1 week without some sort of noise, chaos, commotion. I had someone tell me on Tuesday that it's an absolute bleep show, as would be expected. It's just always something with this school, man. So if I'm a coach that actually has real prospects, like, I'm really thinking long and hard about it if I even want this job. Louisville, there's just nothing to suggest right now that the program, the athletic department, is capable of just kind of existing in a normal, balanced state for any sustainability. It just hasn't happened forever. This isn't just men's basketball. This is throughout the athletic department, throughout the football program. It's just been constantly one thing after another. So when I hear, like Bruce Pearl to Louisville, why would Bruce Pearl leave? I know it sounds. Why would he leave Auburn for Louisville at this point? Auburn is the perfect situation for Bruce Pearl. I'm not saying he wouldn't and it won't happen. I'm just saying, from the outside looking in, if I'm Bruce Pearl, Auburn stuck with me the entire time as there was all this, curiosity, speculation about how badly he could be suspended or have his job impacted by the FBI scandal. And now look what's happened. He got a contract extension. He's got the team to the number 1 ranking for the first time in program history. He's on top of the sport right now at a football first school, or as he told you on the air over the weekend, an everything school. And he has that program positioned in an SEC that's on the swing up. So, I mean, and he's also like, he's getting up there. Like, not that he wouldn't do a rebuild, but like Bruce Pearl's in a perfect spot to finish out the next 5 to 8 years of his career, keeping Auburn in the national conversation and in the tournament almost every single season. So if you're a Louisville fan or if you're speculating on this job, I would just consider just how much needs to be done there and how much uncertainty is still waiting. Like, there's another IARP case that is going to be decided here, and we don't know what that is going to entail there. So the job has plenty of enticement, but there are plenty of things where, like, if you're a real coach with real accomplishments in a position of leverage, I'm not quite sure why you would take the Louisville job right now.
Well, the main reason will be because you've had different coaches win national championships. You get to live in a real city. I mean, like that matters to some people, college towns are nice, but real cities are preferable for most. And so it's an incredible college basketball job in a real city. And, they can put 6 years, $30 million in front of you. So they'll hire somebody who's accomplished. I don't know that it'll be Bruce Pearl, but this is still one of the best jobs in the country. It's always easy for people to say, I don't know why you'd want to walk into that, and because you have the opportunity to walk into that. What happens when that actually says, this is a place where we've shown you can win national championships, beautiful arena, incredible facilities, lots of money, and
said it about Chris Mack, and where are we right now?
Yeah, but here's the thing, Chris Mack, Chris Mack would do it all over again. I mean, not with the benefit of hindsight, okay. but he would. Here's the sometimes people will look at like what just happened to Chris Mack, and you'll say, see, leave well enough alone. You were at your alma mater, winning as coach in school history, 8 NCAA tournaments in 9 years, 4 Sweet 16s, an Elite 8. And if you go to Louisville, look what happened to Chris Mack. And you know what every coach who would be a legitimate candidate at Louisville thinks? Yeah, but that wouldn't happen to me because I'm me. Because the only guy who could get the Louisville job is somebody who's never failed professionally. If you've never failed professionally, you assume you're not going to. Chris Mack did. I'll just be completely transparent. When we wondered on this podcast about, like, are we sure this is the right thing for Chris to do? Like, he's got Xavier rocking and rolling. They just were a 1 seed. It's his alma mater. Louisville's got NCAA cloud hanging above it. Like, are we sure this is the right thing to do? I think a question we actually asked each other, are we sure Chris's success at Louisville will be better than the success he's had at Xavier?
That's exactly right. We brought that specific question up. Yes.
And, we talked through it, however we talked through it. But I subsequently had a conversation with Chris, and he thought I was crazy. He was like, what do you mean can't match the success we had at Xavier at Louisville? What? I mean, it was good heart. Like, we were having fun with it, but he thought that was wild to even consider. Because why? Because he had never been anything but successful, and now he was going to a place where basically everybody is successful. And the next guy who's going to be offered that job is going to think the same way he did. Yeah, that happened to Chris Mack, just like Kentucky happened to Billy Gillispie, just like North Carolina happened to Matt Doherty. All of these things are possible, but I ain't them guys. It ain't going to happen to me. Anybody who is good enough to be offered the Louisville job believes in themselves incredibly. And so I'm not going to pretend to know on January 26th who's going to be the next coach at Louisville, but I bet it'll be somebody good. And I bet when they hire him, we'll say this will probably work out, and then we'll get to see. We'll get to see how it goes.